Denzel Washington reveals a shocking truth about Pope Francis. Live on air, what happens next will leave. The studio lights were so bright they almost burned. Denzel Washington could feel the heat radiating against his skin, a steady pulse of intensity that mirrored the thunderous beat of his heart. He had stood on countless stages, commanded the attention of millions with his words, but tonight was different. Tonight wasn't about a movie premiere or an award speech. This wasn't about Hollywood. This was about the truth, raw, dangerous, and potentially fatal. Before we get into the story, comment below where you are watching from today. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. His voice in his head repeated like a broken record. Once you say it, there's no going back. The charity telecast had gone as planned for the first hour. Celebrities called in pledges, children sang in pre-recorded montages, and producers were relaxed in the control room, sipping coffee and trading jokes. Then Denzel began drifting from the script, his tone shifting subtly at first, almost imperceptible to those who weren't listening closely. But those who were paying attention felt it. I know we've all gathered here tonight to talk about hope, Denzel said, his deep voice carrying the weight of 1,000 sermons. Hope for the poor, hope for the sick, hope for the future of our children. He paused, his eyes narrowing slightly, as if scanning the millions of faces he couldn't see beyond the camera lens. But what if I told you that in some hidden corner of this earth, hope is being twisted into something grotesque? What if I told you that men in power, men we are taught to trust without question, have taken it upon themselves to play God? In the control booth, a young producer stiffened. Was that in the script?" she whispered. Her supervisor leaned forward.
No.
"It's not." The camera operator adjusted nervously. "Do I cut to commercial?" "Not yet," the director snapped. "Let's see where he's going." On stage, Denzel's voice grew steadier, louder. He held up a small leather-bound journal. Its cover was cracked, the pages yellowed and brittle, but the embossed seal of the Vatican was unmistakable. "This," he said, raising it higher, "is one of many documents smuggled out of the Vatican by a courageous whistleblower. Contains evidence so horrifying that even I hesitated to believe it. But now I have no choice. And neither will you." Gasps rippled through the live audience. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others leaned forward, captivated. In the bowels of Vatican City, beneath centuries-old catacombs, there are laboratories, state-of-the-art facilities you will never see in the tourist brochures. And within those labs, human cloning experiments have been conducted for years. Not just sanctioned by the Vatican but personally approved by Pope Francis himself. Chaos erupted in the control room. "Cut him off!" the director barked. "It's too late." The feed's live on multiple international channels and simulcast online. "Fine. Kill the satellite uplink." But the technical director shook his head, eyes wide with disbelief. "We can't. His team has set up a parallel livestream on independent servers. We're not in control anymore." Back on stage, Denzel's hands tightened around the journal. He could feel the sweat running down his spine, but his voice remained strong. They claimed it was to usher in a new age of spiritual evolution, that by cloning saints and prophets, they could create a generation of divine successors, pure souls engineered for a higher purpose. But the truth is far darker. These aren't acts of faith. They're acts of blasphemy. Somewhere in Rome, in the Vatican press office, alarms were blaring. Phones rang off the hook as priests and cardinals scrambled to issue a statement. "Holy Father," an aide stammered, clutching a tablet displaying the broadcast. "He's saying too much. What do we do?" Pope Francis sat in silence, his fingers steepled under his chin. His expression was unreadable. "Prepare a denial," he said softly, "and call Leon. Tell him it's time." Meanwhile, in New York, Denzel continued, his voice dropping low. "A whistleblower inside the Vatican labs risked his life to bring me these files. He paid the ultimate price for it. But not before he handed over photographs, DNA reports, and video footage of what they created. I have seen it, and soon. So will you." He gestured to the giant screen behind him. The image flickered to life. A young boy no older than 12, dressed in simple white robes. His face bore an eerie, unmistakable resemblance to Saint Francis Xavier, a saint canonized centuries ago. But this boy was alive, breathing, and his DNA matched the saint's perfectly. The audience gasped. In a matter of seconds, the image spread like wildfire across the globe. On Twitter, Instagram, and encrypted Telegram channels, the photo went viral under hashtags like #VaticanClones and #SaintReborn. Backstage, Denzel's assistant rushed to him. "Sir, your family's been moved to a safe location. There are already people outside protesting. Some with candles, some with guns." "I expected as much," Denzel replied grimly. "You're not safe here. We need to go." "Not yet." He turned back to the camera, his eyes dark with determination. "They will call me a liar. They will say I've lost my mind. But remember this moment. When the Vatican sends its press releases, when they tell you this is fake news or blasphemy, ask yourself, why are they so afraid of you knowing the truth?" At that moment, in the Vatican archives, Father Matteo Leone stood alone in a chamber lined with cold metal shelves. He stared at rows of glass tanks where pale human forms floated in nutrient fluid. He whispered a prayer under his breath, though he wasn't sure if heaven was listening anymore. "They weren't supposed to wake yet," he murmured. "God forgive us. They weren't supposed to wake." A sharp sound echoed behind him, boots on stone. "Father Leone," a voice said coldly. "His Holiness requests your presence." Leone turned slowly, his face pale. He knew he wouldn't be coming back. On screens around the world, Denzel delivered his final words before the feed went black. "This isn't just about faith. It's about control of our souls, our future, and even our bodies. If they can clone saints, what's to stop them from cloning rulers? From rewriting humanity itself? You deserve to know the truth. And tonight, you have it." The screen went dark. For 3 seconds, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then all hell broke loose. The world didn't wait for the Vatican to respond. It didn't need to. In the minutes following Denzel Washington's revelation, every screen from Times Square to the smallest village internet cafe in rural Africa was lit up with the image of the cloned boy. The picture was haunting. His eyes carried an otherworldly calm. His hands folded in prayer, as though he understood that his very existence was a theological paradox. News anchors stumbled over their words, trying to balance skepticism with urgency. Some called it the hoax of the century. Others whispered about the second coming. At CNN headquarters in Atlanta, producers scrambled to assemble panels. "We need a priest, a scientist, and someone from Denzel's team on air now," barked the executive producer, her face flushed. In London, BBC interrupted regular programming with breaking news banners. Sky News followed within seconds, their anchors looking pale and slightly terrified. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, actor and activist Denzel Washington has made a shocking live broadcast alleging that Pope Francis approved human cloning experiments in Vatican-controlled laboratories. The anchor said, her voice trembling slightly. Images purportedly showing a living clone of Saint Francis Xavier are circulating online. The Vatican has not yet issued a formal response. On the streets of Paris, crowds gathered near Notre Dame, holding up smartphones and candles in equal measure. Some knelt in prayer. Others shouted angrily, shaking their fists at the ancient cathedral. "It's true. They're trying to control our souls," screamed one man, his face contorted with rage. In Cairo, an imam denounced the Vatican's alleged actions over loudspeakers, calling it an abomination against God. Meanwhile, in Rome, the Vatican's press office was in chaos. Dozens of aides rushed between computers and phones, their voices rising in panic. "Shut down social media access on our servers," shouted one cardinal. "Too late. The image is everywhere," another replied, holding up his phone. Inside a private chamber, Pope Francis sat in silence. A large television screen displayed Denzel's broadcast replaying on a loop. "Holy Father, the world is demanding answers," said Cardinal Lorenzo Ricci, his voice strained. We must issue a statement immediately. Deny everything. Call it fabricated. Would that be the truth, Lorenzo? The Pope asked quietly. Ricci froze. It doesn't matter. Truth is what we tell them it is. The faithful are frightened. They'll believe what we tell them to believe. Pope Francis looked down at his hands, weathered and trembling slightly. This is not how it was supposed to unfold. A phone vibrated on the table. Elena Rossi's name appeared on the screen of a burner device. One of the Pope's aides answered it, expecting a Vatican insider. Instead, her voice cut through like a blade. I know about Project Novus Animus. And I know Father Leone gave Denzel everything before you silenced him. The aide stiffened, glancing nervously at the Pope. You're making a grave mistake, Elena continued. The truth is bigger than you now, bigger than Rome. You can't bury it. The line went dead. Back in New York, Denzel paced inside a safe house, his fists clenched. They're going to come after us harder now, said his assistant, Marcus, peering through the blinds. I've seen 4 black sedans circle the block in the last hour. Denzel didn't flinch. Let them come, he said. We're not backing down. He turned to Elena on a secure video call. How bad is it? Elena's face was pale, her lips tight. Worse than we thought. People are already rioting in parts of South America. Some believe the clone child is a miracle. Others are calling for war against the Vatican. Governments are demanding access to Vatican territory. And Father Leone, she hesitated. They found his body. Burned beyond recognition. Starting Denzel. This isn't just a scandal anymore. It's a global crisis. In Moscow, President Antonov addressed his nation live. The Vatican must answer for these crimes against humanity. If these allegations are proven true, it is not merely a religious matter. It is a violation of international law. Human cloning cannot be tolerated, no matter who claims divine authority. In Washington, the U.S. President convened an emergency session with the National Security Council. Denzel Washington claims to have classified Vatican documents, an aide explained nervously. If true, this could destabilize the Catholic Church and half of Europe. What do we do? Do we have confirmation this isn't a hoax? The president asked. Not yet, but intelligence sources suggest the Vatican has increased armed guard presence in restricted sectors under St. Peter's Basilica. The president rubbed his temples. God help us if this is real. As night fell over Vatican City, the Swiss Guard tightened their patrols. Tourists were cleared from St. Peter's Square. Inside, Pope Francis knelt before a crucifix, whispering prayers only he and God could hear. But his prayer was interrupted by the echo of approaching footsteps. Your Holiness, said Cardinal Ricci, bowing, we have prepared a public statement denying all allegations. Shall I release it? Pope Francis looked up, his eyes glassy. Release it. But understand, Lorenzo, lies will not save us this time. Across the world, the internet boiled over. On Reddit, a thread titled, Is the Vatican Cloning Saints? Reached 10 million upvotes in under an hour. On TikTok, teens posted videos of themselves crying or raging against the church. In Mexico City, devout Catholics formed human chains around cathedrals to protect holy ground. In Berlin, scientists and ethicists debated heatedly on national television. This is not just a religious issue, one geneticist argued. If these clones exist, they're sentient beings. What rights do they have? Are they property? Are they people? This opens a Pandora's box humanity is not prepared for. By dawn, the Vatican issued its official response. The Holy See categorically denies all allegations made by Mr. Washington. The purported documents and images are fabrications designed to sow discord among the faithful. We urge all Catholics to remain steadfast in their faith and reject these blasphemous lies. But it was too late. The genie was out of the bottle. The world wasn't listening to reassurances. It was waiting for proof. And Denzel Washington was ready to give it to them. The cobblestone streets of Rome were unusually quiet for a city that never truly slept. Elena Rossi moved like a shadow, her coat pulled tightly around her as she darted from one alleyway to another. The street lamps flickered overhead, casting pale light onto ancient stone buildings that seemed to watch her every move. She clutched her leather satchel tightly, her fingers brushing against the cold edge of the encrypted drive hidden inside. The air smelled faintly of rain and gasoline. She had received the message less than 2 hours ago. A single line of text from Father Matteo Leone. I have what you need. Meet me at Café di San Lorenzo. Midnight. Come alone. Every instinct told her it could be a trap. The Vatican had eyes everywhere, and after Denzel's explosive broadcast, she knew there would be a price on her head. But if Matteo was alive, he was her only chance at getting the final pieces of evidence into Denzel's hands. She pushed open the creaking door of the cafe, the tiny bell above it jingling softly. The place was empty save for an elderly barista who gave her a wary glance before disappearing into the back. At a corner table sat Father Matteo, his priestly collar slightly askew, his hands trembling as they wrapped around a chipped coffee cup. His usually clean-shaven face was shadowed with stubble, and his eyes darted nervously to the door as Elena approached. You came, he whispered. I didn't have a choice, she replied, sliding into the seat opposite him. You said you had proof. Is it real, Matteo? Or is Denzel risking everything for nothing? Matteo's lips trembled as he spoke. It's worse than you think. The boy in that photo? He was only the beginning. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, battered USB drive, setting it gently on the table between them. This contains footage from inside the labs. You'll see the tanks, the embryos, and the children, dozens of them, clones of saints, popes, even historical rulers. It's not just about spiritual evolution. It's about control. They call it Project Novus Animus. Elena felt her stomach twist. Why are you giving this to me? You're part of it, aren't you? You worked in those labs. Matteo's hands clenched into fists. I thought we were saving humanity, that we were giving faith a future. But I was wrong. They're creating weapons, Elena. Children trained from birth to manipulate governments, religions, entire populations. The Pope's inner circle doesn't want divine successors. They want an army. A chill settled over her. Then you know they'll kill you for talking to me. They're already trying, Matteo said bitterly. This is my only chance at redemption. You need to get this to Denzel. He's the only one with a voice loud enough to expose them. He shoved the drive into her hands and grabbed her wrist tightly. Promise me you won't stop, no matter what happens. Before she could answer, the bell above the cafe door jingled again. 2 men in black suits stepped inside, their eyes scanning the room like predators. Matteo's eyes widened in terror. Run, he whispered. Run now. Elena didn't wait. She bolted for the back door, clutching the drive to her chest. Behind her, she heard a struggle. The sound of a chair clattering to the floor, a muffled cry. She didn't look back. On the other side of Rome, in a Vatican control room deep beneath St. Peter's Basilica, Cardinal Lorenzo Ricci watched a grainy live feed from the cafe. Rossi has the data, a young operative said, his voice tense. Terminate her if necessary, Ricci replied coldly. But make sure you recover that drive. And Leone. Ricci's lips curled into a sneer. Make an example of him. Elena ran through narrow alleyways, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She could hear footsteps pounding behind her, the heavy thud of boots on cobblestones. Her only chance was to lose them in the maze of Rome's old city. She ducked into a small chapel, the air thick with incense and candlelight. A handful of worshippers knelt in prayer, oblivious to the danger outside. Elena slipped into the confessional booth, pulling the curtain closed. Her heart hammered in her chest as she fumbled with her phone, activating an encrypted line to Denzel. Pick up, she whispered. Please. The morning after Elena's narrow escape from Rome, the world woke up to a different kind of dawn. It wasn't sunlight that lit up the planet. It was pixels, notifications, and push alerts. On millions of phone screens, a single image appeared almost simultaneously. A child, no older than 12, His pale skin glowed under the dim blue lights of what looked like a laboratory chamber. His eyes, hauntingly serene, seemed to pierce through every lens, every viewer, every soul who saw them. And beside the image was a caption: Saint Reborn? DNA match confirms Vatican clone project. The internet ignited like dry kindling struck by a torch. In Tokyo, commuters stared at massive digital billboards above Shibuya Crossing. The image of the boy hovered over the chaos of the world's busiest intersection. In Lagos, radio hosts abandoned their playlists to argue heatedly about whether this child was a holy miracle or an abomination. In Buenos Aires, where Pope Francis had once walked as a humble parish priest, devout Catholics took to the streets, some chanting prayers, others wielding baseball bats and torches as they surrounded the local cathedral. Inside a secure apartment in New York City, Denzel Washington sat at the edge of a long oak table, laptop open, his fingers steepled. The room around him buzzed with the frantic energy of his small team. Marcus barked orders into a phone, while 3 cybersecurity experts hunched over their monitors, monitoring server loads. "It's spreading faster than we thought," said Naomi, one of the analysts. "We're talking over 1 billion views in 4 hours. And it's not just social media. Mainstream networks are picking it up too." "Good," Denzel replied quietly. "Let the world see." But his eyes betrayed no satisfaction, no victory. Only a cold, grim determination. He knew what came next would be even darker. At Vatican City, the press office was suffocating under a storm of calls and emails. "This is getting out of control," one advisor shouted, slamming his phone down. "We've got protests forming outside embassies in Paris, Mexico City, and Manila, half the Catholic. We've already issued a denial," another aide stammered. "But no one believes it. The photo is too powerful. And those DNA test results." Ricci's eyes flashed dangerously. "Fabricated," he interrupted. "That's what we'll say. Lies spread by enemies of the church. We'll remind the faithful that Satan himself was known as the Great Deceiver." Pope Francis sat silently in the corner, his face pale and drawn. "They won't believe us forever, Lorenzo," he murmured. "This child, his existence is not just a rumor anymore. It's a reality." "Then we change reality," Ricci snapped. "We've done it before. We'll do it again." In Washington, D.C., the president met with his national security team in a dimly lit situation room. "This is spiraling into a global crisis," said the Secretary of State. "Religious violence is breaking out across 3 continents. We've got reports of church burnings in Brazil and mobs in Poland demanding Vatican transparency." "Do we have confirmation the photo is authentic?" the president asked. The CIA director nodded grimly. "Our sources in Rome say yes. And there's more. Apparently, the Vatican has been quietly moving special cargo out of hidden facilities beneath St. Peter's Basilica. Whatever's down there, they don't want the world to see it." The president rubbed his forehead. "God help us." Back in New York, Elena paced in front of the TV as reporters dissected every detail of the leaked image. "This boy's genetic sequence has been analyzed by independent labs in Berlin and Boston," said one anchor. "They confirm a 99.8% match to preserved relics of St. Francis Xavier. This revelation raises ethical, spiritual, and political questions too big to ignore." Elena turned to Denzel, her voice tight. "They're not going to just let this unfold. The Vatican has survived centuries of scandals. They'll kill us all before they let this destroy them." Denzel nodded slowly. "Then we don't just fight back. We flood them with truth. If one photo can do this, imagine what the videos will do." Around the world, reactions grew increasingly volatile. In Manila, a man knelt barefoot on the hot asphalt outside the Apostolic Nunciature, screaming at the sky, "Bring us the Holy Child. We demand to see him." In Berlin, protesters hurled Molotov cocktails at Catholic churches, shouting about genetic blasphemy. In Boston, scientists and bioethicists held emergency summits, debating live on television. "Cloning saints is not just immoral, it's playing God," shouted Dr. Evan Fields, a geneticist. Who decides morality here? Countered Sister Agatha Flynn, a Catholic ethicist. If God gave us the tools, perhaps this was his will. Meanwhile, the clone child in the photo sat in a cold, sterile cell deep within the Vatican's underground complex. A glass wall separated him from a group of white-coated scientists and two cardinals who watched him like hawks. He stared back, his small face calm, almost serene. "Does he know?" one scientist whispered. Cardinal Ricci answered without taking his eyes off the boy. "He knows what we've taught him. Nothing more. But what if he remembers?" Ricci's jaw tightened. "Then we make him forget." In a darkened Vatican server room, a young technician worked frantically to scrub digital evidence. Encrypted files were being deleted one after another, records of experiments, birth certificates, and medical logs. But in a hidden corner of the network, a single line of code blinked to life. "Sir," the technician stammered, calling Ricci on the secure line. "We have a breach. Someone's hacking the system. They're streaming data to an external server." Ricci's voice was a low growl. "Shut it down. Now." But the leak couldn't be stopped. On screens worldwide, new videos began appearing. Children in rows of glass tanks, their faces eerily similar to saints depicted in Renaissance paintings. Scientists in Vatican insignia moving through sterile hallways. Genetic sequencing charts flashing on monitors. And one chilling headline accompanied the footage. Project Novus Animus, the Vatican's army of cloned saints. As night fell over the Vatican, the Swiss Guard stood tense at their posts. Behind closed doors, Pope Francis prayed aloud, his voice shaking. "Forgive us, Lord. We thought we were doing your work. We were wrong." In the shadows, Ricci watched him with cold eyes. "Your Holiness, faith is not built on forgiveness. It is built on power, and we will not lose it." The cobbled streets of Vatican City seemed deserted, but Denzel and Elena knew better. The silence was deceptive, heavy with the weight of centuries of secrets and the eyes of men sworn to protect them at all costs. Their car rolled to a slow stop in a dim alley near the edge of St. Peter's Square. Marcus killed the engine, his hands still gripping the wheel tightly as he scanned the mirrors. "This is as far as I go," he muttered. "They're crawling all over the place with plainclothes security. Cameras too. You take one wrong step and we're all ghosts." Elena pulled the hood of her jacket tighter around her face. "Then we'll just have to take the right steps," she said, though her voice betrayed a flicker of doubt. Denzel said nothing as he checked the small flash drive in his pocket. On it were the files Matteo had died to smuggle out, schematics of underground chambers, lists of genetic test subjects, and video recordings that would burn centuries of Vatican credibility to ash. But he needed proof in the flesh. Seeing one photo, one video wasn't enough. People needed to see the reality for themselves, unfiltered. That's why they were here. "Ready?" Elena asked softly. Denzel nodded. "Let's do this." They slipped into the square under cover of darkness, moving with quiet precision along the perimeter of St. Peter's Basilica. The massive dome loomed above them like an all-seeing eye, but it wasn't the visible parts of Vatican City that concerned them. It was what lay beneath. Matteo's files had pointed to an entrance hidden within the necropolis under the basilica, an ancient burial ground where popes and saints rested alongside the ruins of Roman emperors. As they approached the side entrance, a figure stepped out from the shadows. A tall man in a dark Swiss Guard uniform, his face shadowed by his beret. "You're late," he whispered.
Elena Stefained.
"You're sure we can trust him?" she asked. Denzel's eyes didn't leave the man's face. "We have no choice." The guard extended a gloved hand. "Give me the drive. It's too dangerous for you to carry it inside." Denzel hesitated for a moment, then shook his head.
"No.
"It stays with me." For a heartbeat, tension crackled in the air like static. Then the guard stepped aside. "Follow me, and pray they don't find us before we get there." The necropolis was colder than Denzel expected. The air smelled of damp stone and ancient dust, heavy with the weight of centuries of human history. Rows of sarcophagi lined narrow corridors, their carved Latin inscriptions glowing faintly in the dim light. But it wasn't the dead that unnerved him. It was the hum. Faint at first, then stronger the deeper they went. A low, mechanical vibration beneath their feet, like the beating heart of some massive machine. "This way," the guard said, leading them to a heavy iron door marked with a strange insignia, a cross interwoven with strands of DNA. He produced a keycard, swiping it through a hidden panel. The door clicked and hissed open. The corridor beyond was unlike anything Denzel had imagined. Gone were the ancient stones and dim candlelight. This was a sterile, fluorescent-lit hallway lined with reinforced steel walls. Cameras blinked overhead. Doors on either side bore cryptic labels in Latin and English. Subject Sanctus 12, Genome Refinement Wing, Embryonic Growth Chamber. "This isn't a laboratory," Elena whispered. "It's a factory." The guard glanced back at them, his face pale. "They call it Project Novus Animus. To give the Church eternal guardians. Holy warriors reborn in flesh." Denzel's jaw tightened. "They're building an army." They stopped at a wide observation window. Below, in a massive chamber, rows of glass tanks glowed softly with a bluish light. Each held a human form suspended in liquid, eyes closed, umbilical cords snaking into their bellies. Children, identical faces, peaceful expressions. Some looked no older than newborns. Others were teenagers. One tank bore a placard that read S. Francis Xavier Generation 3. Another, Pope Innocent the 10th Generation 2. Elena raised a trembling hand to her mouth. My God! They weren't lying. Denzel's hands curled into fists. And they call this salvation. A sudden sound broke the silence. Footsteps. The guard's eyes went wide. They've found us. Run. Alarms blared as they sprinted down the corridor, lights flashing red. Doors slammed shut automatically behind them. This way, the guard shouted, leading them to a small stairwell. As they emerged into another chamber, Denzel froze. Dozens of children sat in rows, dressed in simple white robes. Their faces were eerily familiar. Some bore the features of saints. Others looked like carbon copies of popes whose portraits hung in Vatican museums. They turned to look at him, eyes wide and innocent. Who are you? One boy asked softly, his voice echoing in the cold air. Denzel felt a lump rise in his throat. I'm here to help you, he said. But before he could take another step, a voice boomed over the loudspeakers. Mr. Washington, Miss Rossi, you should not have come here. It was Cardinal Ricci. High above in a glass observation deck, Ricci stared down at them, flanked by armed guards. You've seen too much, he said coldly. You cannot leave. Denzel stepped forward, his voice steady. These children aren't yours to keep. They're not soldiers. They're not saints. They're victims. Ricci's lips curled into a sneer. They are the future. A future you will not live to see. He gestured to the guards. Kill them. As the first shots rang out, Denzel grabbed Elena's hand and bolted for the nearest exit. The Swiss guard threw himself in front of them, firing his weapon at the pursuing soldiers. Go! He shouted. Get the truth out. Denzel and Elena burst through a side door, racing up a narrow stairwell as bullets ricocheted off the walls. They emerged into the night air, gasping for breath. But they weren't safe yet. Behind them, alarms blared across Vatican City. And deep below, Ricci watched their escape with cold fury. The Vatican's great bronze doors slammed shut at sunrise, but it was too late to contain the storm. The world outside was already spinning out of control. In Sao Paulo, a sea of protesters crowded the streets, waving banners scrawled with phrases like, "The church betrayed us," and "We are not God's experiments." Some clutched rosaries, praying aloud through tears. Others hurled stones at cathedral windows, their faces twisted in rage. In Manila, a different crowd chanted, "The child is the savior. Bring us the Holy One." They knelt in the streets, hands raised to the heavens as priests tried to calm them. But calm had become impossible. News broadcasts across every continent tried to make sense of the chaos. Governments are demanding immediate access to Vatican archives, said one American anchor. Meanwhile, reports are coming in of fires at Catholic churches in Ireland, Chile, and Canada. Some groups are calling this the Great Apostasy. Others believe the clone children are divine beings sent by God. In Berlin, scientists argued on live television. "These are human beings, not miracles," shouted Dr. Anna Kruger, a geneticist. "They deserve rights and protection, not worship or execution." Her opponent, a priest in black robes, slammed his fist on the table. "You dare call them human? They are abominations. They have no souls." The audience erupted into shouts and cries, echoing the growing division across the globe. In a safe house just outside Rome, Denzel Washington watched the chaos unfold on a cracked television screen. His face was pale but set with grim determination. "It started," Elena said quietly, sitting beside him. "We've cracked the dam wide open. Now the flood is washing everything away." Denzel's eyes didn't leave the screen. "This isn't the flood, Elena. It's only the first wave." Marcus entered the room, his phone pressed to his ear. "Denzel, the servers are maxed out. We've got hackers trying to take us offline. Somebody wants to shut you down for good." "They'll try," Denzel said, "but they're too late." He tapped a button on his laptop, sending a new wave of files into the digital ether. Video clips, schematics, and personal accounts of scientists who'd worked on the Vatican's secret projects began to surface on every platform, from YouTube to encrypted forums. It was a data dump designed to be unstoppable. "This is your Noah's Ark," Denzel murmured. "If they take us down, the truth still floats." But in Vatican City, the response was swift and merciless. In the Apostolic Palace, Cardinal Lorenzo Ricci addressed an emergency council of bishops and military advisors. "The world burns because of a single man and his lies," Ricci snarled. "Denzel Washington has positioned himself as judge and prophet. If we don't act now, the church will crumble." "And the Pope?" asked one bishop nervously. Ricci's eyes darkened. "His Holiness is indisposed. For now, we are the guardians of God's will." A general in crisp uniform stepped forward. "We have assets in place across Europe and North America. Say the word, Eminence, and Washington's voice will be silenced permanently." Ricci's lips curled into a cold smile. "Do it, and retrieve the children. Every one of them." The Vatican wasn't the only power moving against Denzel. In Washington, D.C., the president's security advisors debated in hushed tones. "This revelation has destabilized Catholic countries across South America and Europe," one advisor said. "If the Vatican falls, we could see governments collapse. We need to take a position." "Do we support Washington or condemn him?" the president asked. The CIA director leaned forward. "Sir, we've confirmed the authenticity of the files. But if the public believes the Vatican created an army of saints, it could lead to religious wars. Maybe it's time to consider silencing Washington for the sake of global stability." The president stared at the table in silence. As night fell in Rome, Denzel and Elena were on the move again. "This safe house isn't safe anymore," Marcus warned, his hands gripping the wheel tightly as their car sped down a winding country road. "They've got drones overhead and agents in the city. We're one step ahead barely." Elena clutched her satchel, inside of which were the last remaining physical copies of Matteo's files. "They can kill us," she said, her voice trembling. "But they can't kill the truth. Not now. Not after what we've released." "They won't stop with us," Denzel said. "The Vatican wants control, not redemption. And the world's eating itself alive while they tighten their grip." Suddenly, headlights flared in the rearview mirror.